Very good evening to you, Ambassador, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's perhaps start off with your initial thoughts when South Africa initiated action and the subsequent support received from some expected quarters such as Morocco.
Well, thank you very much. My initial reaction was really to be proud of the South African initiative. And I believe all self-respecting Africans and peace-loving people world over should be proud of the South African action. Now, many were skeptical at the beginning whether the South African will succeed, will push ahead, because obviously the case was opposed by very powerful countries. But that notwithstanding, South Africa summoned all the political and diplomatic courage, because this case is wholly political, to push ahead and to go ahead. And here we are. Today we have seen that South Africa has put together a very competent, professional legal team to argue the case. And they were very impressive in the head argument against the case of genocide. And I think as lay people, there should be no debate as to whether the Israeli action of this systematic, horrendous destruction and the killings of Palestinian people constitute genocide, because that is absolutely not open to debate.
Namibia is one of the countries that have pledged their support, including some 900 civil society organizations. Do you think that this backing of Namibia and the civil society organizations and other nations will help solidify South Africa's case against Israel?
Namibia is compelled by history, by geography, by the character of her people to support South Africa. And I'm particularly proud that we are among the very, very few African countries that has come out long ago, actually, way back in October, to register our case. At that time, before the International Criminal Court, to register our disapproval of the genocide being committed in Gaza by the Israeli forces. And nothing is more encouraging. We know this because we were personal witnesses to the value and importance of solidarity. There is nothing that is more encouraging, therefore, to have such a huge number of civil society organizations and individual governments declaring their support, their solidarity with South Africa at this important political point in our history. It's politically important because this case is political. And you know, in our own case, the government, powerful governments in the United States and Britain were opposed to sanctions against South Africa. But it was the public that compelled those governments to come around and support sanctions. So we have to call on the individual Namibian citizens to rally behind the case of Palestine.
On the other hand, Israel is accused of committing genocide, which it denies, but one of South Africa's lawyers extended it to atrocities, and we're reminded of the display and illustrations of that argument. In your view, did the South African bench provide a solid case of genocide intent?
I think they have. They put together a very strong case, a strong argument, and they quoted individual Israeli leaders, from the Prime Minister to Deputy Speaker of Parliament, of Knesset, to the Minister of Defense, systematically using the words of those leaders, and those words amount to really incitement of genocide. Some of the leaders, the Israeli leaders, called Palestinians animal humans, barbarians, And those words can only incite the commission of genocide. And therefore, the South Africans really have to be applauded. They have to be commended for putting out a very competent, very well-argued case against the State of Israel.
Israel is not showing any sign of slowing down and has maintained its position to destroy Gaza and consequently the people of Palestine. From what we have seen so far in this destruction, can it be compared to any other modern warfare that comes to mind?
You know, we had our Oshikuku massacres, we had our Epinga massacre, we had our Kasinga massacre, we had the Chinoi in Mozambique against the Zimbabweans. We have had a series of massacres in our history. We have had the Sharpeville in South Africa. But nothing is comparable to what is happening today in Gaza. Nothing. The Kasinga massacre was a few hours event. Obviously, it killed a lot of people. We felt very frustrated and angry, but it was a matter of event. This massacre, first of all, Israel is the occupying power in Palestinian territories. They are simply defending, consolidating their occupation. But this present massacre, this present genocide has been going on for the last 3 months, for more than 3 months. Every hour, night and day. And buildings, hospitals, schools, refugee centers, feeding centers, and this is the only time that the occupying power, the aggressor power, has imposed restrictions, actually blockade on the provision of water, provision of electricity, provision of food, provision of medicine to the civilian population. We have seen through television children, babies in incubators being taken out of hospital because they are under attack, but they had nowhere to go. They died. This is nothing but genocide intent to eliminate the population of Palestine, force out those surviving Palestinians, and occupy by Jewish settlers the territory of Palestine, particularly the Gaza Strip, make it part and parcel of the State of Israel.
Now, Israel is going to present their side of the story tomorrow. And some may argue, listening to what is being said, is that Israel is already guilty. What could they possibly pull out of the hat tomorrow to defend themselves? Because they've maintained all along that they are defending their integrity, their people, because of years of attack from the Palestinians, Hamas, and all these other groups that they consider as enemies. What could they possibly say that might vindicate them from these actions that have been considered as genocide?
Well, the Israelis are going to put up fake arguments, but their actions speak louder than whatever argument they can put up. First, we all recall that the present state of Israel had emerged as a direct result of the persecution of the Jewish community by Hitler and others, but by Hitler. Although the present the partition was carried out in 1917 by a British High Commission in 1917, the actual creation of the State of Israel had emerged as a direct consequence of the Second World War. 6 million of them were killed were gas chambered by Hitler. And there was an overwhelming international sympathy towards the Jewish people. They were victims of a Holocaust. They now use the same method, not gas chambering, obviously, but the same lack of empathy, lack of humanity to destroy the Palestinian people. And they use their own experience of 1939, 1945 to blackmail whoever says they are wrong. They will undoubtedly invoke this argument that they are victims. They are not victims of anybody. They are victims of their own action. Now, the Secretary General at the beginning of this conflict had said before the Security Council that the 7 October event by Hamas, when they killed Israeli civilians and some soldiers, did not happen in a vacuum. It happened against the background of occupation. Tell me, which people would accept to be occupied by foreign power and sit with their arms folded? The Palestinians are resisting brutal occupation and annexation of their territory and the denial of the fundamental human rights.
Lastly, Ambassador, apart from South Africa's case at The Hague against Israel, not to play it down, but what else will it take for Israel to put down its weapon and de-escalate the whole situation? What will it take? Do nations need to stand together? Do they need to isolate Israel? What happens in such a situation from a diplomatic standpoint?
You know, when Sam Nujoma started the struggle for the independence of Namibia, he first went to New York and he spent about a year there. And when he realized that we are not going to achieve independence through the United Nations. He came back through Ghana, and Nkrumah told him, no, Sam, we have to liberate Rhodesia first, and Angola and Mozambique, and Southwest Africa should wait. He went to Nyerere, he was told practically the same thing. So he went to NASA, and NASA organized for SWAPO to have their people trained. There is no permanent occupation. Israel will survive for as long, obviously, as the Americans and the British. The British created the problem in the first place. They continue to support the brutalization of the people of Palestine. The Americans have deployed so many warships in the Eastern Mediterranean. They provided this nuclear technology and nuclear weapons to Israel. So, but there is no, if you just think it clearly about the South African question that they brought this case before the International Court of Justice, it was inconceivable just a few months ago that an African country, a former victim of apartheid brutality, had the wisdom and foresight to bring this case before the International Court of Justice. We, as Namibian, our case was brought to the International Court of Justice twice. First in 1960. Obviously, we were frustrated when Percy Spender, the judge president, the presiding judge at the time, used his position to support the argument of South Africa. But when we took the case in 1970, 1971, we won. So no power will ever subdue and cow down a people determined to fight for the realization of their independence, of their freedom, and respect for their human dignity.
Ambassador Kalomoh, thank you so much for your time and for that insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right.